The fall of Ayutthaya and the dawn of Bangkok. The history of empires is not a straight line of ascent. Sometimes, a brilliant civilization, a city once called one of the most magnificent in the world, can be erased in the blink of an eye. Such is the tragic story of Ayutthaya, the mighty empire of the Siamese people. This is a story of the epic, long-running rivalry between the two most powerful peoples of mainland Southeast Asia, the Burmese and the Thais. A story of the miraculous rise of a new, aggressive, and ruthless Burmese dynasty. A story of the fall of a golden capital after 400 years of existence. And finally, the story of a nation's extraordinary resurgence from the ashes, led by a hero of mixed blood, who would give birth to a new dynasty and a new capital that endures to this day. Welcome back to the History of Southeast Asia series. In episode 20, we will witness one of its most tragic chapters, the fall of Ayutthaya and the birth of modern Siam. Part 1. The Legacy of Isolation, Ayutthaya after the Revolution of 1688. To understand the fall of Ayutthaya, we must first go back nearly a century. The Revolution of 1688, led by Phatracha, overthrew King Rama I and his policy of openness to the West, particularly to the French. This event completely reshaped Ayutthaya's foreign policy. From an open kingdom, Ayutthaya became closed and suspicious of Europeans. Under the reign of Phatracha, 1688 to 1703, and his successors, Siamese foreign policy became extremely cautious. European trading companies, like the Dutch East India Company, VOC, were still allowed to trade, but their political influence was completely eliminated. The Ayutthayan court focused on internal affairs and its relationships with Asian neighbors. On the surface, this was a long period of peace and prosperity. The capital of Ayutthaya continued to be a brilliant center of commerce and Buddhism. Art and literature flourished, but this isolation also had negative consequences. Ayutthaya had cut itself off from the major changes happening in the world. They failed to update their military technology with Western advancements, while their rivals were growing ever stronger. The long peace led the aristocracy to become absorbed in court intrigues, and the army seemed to have lost the battle-hardened edge of its early days. The kingdom, though wealthy, had become fragile from within. Part 2. The Rise of the Fire Phoenix, Alaungpaya and the Konbaung Dynasty. While Ayutthaya was enjoying a fragile peace, to the west, a new storm was brewing. After the collapse of the First Taungoo Empire, Burma had once again fallen into disunity. In the early 18th century, the Mon people of the south had rebelled, re-establishing a new Pegu kingdom, and in 1752, they attacked and captured the capital of Ava, ending the Taungoo dynasty. It seemed as though the Burmese would once again be dominated by the Mon. But from the ashes of Ava, a Burmese national hero emerged. He was the chief of a small village in Shwebo. His name was Alaungpaya. He was not a prince, but a man of immense merit and fervent patriotism. Alaungpaya gathered the undefeated Burmese and launched a resistance. With extraordinary military talent and an inspiring charisma, he repeatedly defeated much larger Mon armies. Within a few years, he had driven the Mon out of Upper Burma, and in 1752, he founded a new dynasty, the last and one of the most aggressive dynasties of Burma, the Konbaung dynasty. Alaungpaya was a relentless conqueror. After unifying the north, he marched south, retook Prom, and in 1755, he captured Dagon, a small Mon fishing village. He renamed it Rangoon, meaning end of strife, and built it into a major seaport. By 1757, he had completely conquered the Mon kingdom of Pegu, once again unifying all of Burma under a single banner. With a unified Burma and a battle-hardened army, Alaungpaya began to look further afield. He remembered the glorious era of Bayanong and believed that Ayutthaya, the traditional enemy, had to be subdued. The Great Burmese Siamese Wars, which had been dormant for nearly 150 years, were about to erupt again with unprecedented ferocity. Part 3. The Fateful Invasion, the War and the Fall of Ayutthaya. In 1760, using a border dispute as a pretext, Alaungpaya personally led a large army to attack Ayutthaya. The Burmese army, with its morale high, quickly overwhelmed the Siamese and advanced to besiege the capital. However, fate intervened. While directing the siege, Alaungpaya was mortally wounded when a cannon exploded. He ordered a retreat and died on the way home. Alaungpaya's death temporarily saved Ayutthaya, but his successors, especially his second son, King Simbushan, possessed even greater ambition and ruthlessness. After consolidating his power, Simbushan was determined to complete his father's unfinished business, the destruction of Ayutthaya. In 1765, an invasion of unprecedented scale was launched. Two massive pincer movements of the Burmese army attacked Siam from both the north and the south, under the command of their two most brilliant generals, Mahanarada and Ayutthaya. The Siamese army, after many years of peace, fought weakly and without organization. Gradually, cities and fortresses fell one by one. By early 1766, the two Burmese armies had joined forces and begun the final siege of the capital of Ayutthaya. The siege lasted for more than a year. Ayutthaya, surrounded by rivers, was a nearly impregnable fortress. But this time, the Burmese were well prepared. They built fortifications, built boats, and patiently tightened their encirclement. Inside the city, the Siamese court proved to be helpless and indecisive. Finally, on April 7, 1767, the tragedy occurred. The Burmese army breached the city walls and poured into the capital. What followed was a systematic massacre and destruction. The capital of Ayutthaya, one of the most magnificent and populous cities in the world at the time, with its thousands of golden pagodas and splendid palaces, was completely looted and burned to the ground. The Siamese king died while fleeing. Tens of thousands of people were taken as prisoners and deported to Burma. After 417 years of existence, the glorious Ayutthaya Empire had fallen. Part 4. The Hero of Two Bloodlines, The Rise of Taksin. The fall of Ayutthaya plunged the kingdom of Siam into the worst period of chaos and anarchy in its history. The Burmese army, after destroying the capital, did not stay to rule for long, as they had to deal with Chinese invasions in the north. The land of Siam was left without a king, without a central government, and was fragmented into various regions controlled by local warlords. Amidst this desperation, a hero emerged. He was a young general named Taksin. He had a special background. His father was a Chinese immigrant, while his mother was Thai. It was this mix of two bloodlines that seemed to give him his resilience, military talent, and a sharp business acumen. Before the capital fell, Taksin had realized the situation was hopeless and had led a small group of loyal soldiers to break through the siege. He marched southeast, towards the coastal region, where he could recruit soldiers and rebuild his forces. In just a few short months after the fall of Ayutthaya, Taksin achieved the impossible. He had gathered a considerable army and fleet. Seeing that the Burmese forces were scattered, he launched a lightning counterattack. He sailed up the Chao Phraya River and attacked the main Burmese garrison near the old capital. By the end of 1767, just 7 months after the tragedy, Taksin had completely driven the Burmese army out of central Siam. He had liberated the country. After his victory, he was crowned king. Realizing that Ayutthaya was completely destroyed and could not be restored, he decided to establish a new capital closer to the sea, at Thonburi, across the river from modern-day Bangkok. Part 5. The unification of Siam and the birth of the Chakri dynasty. Becoming king was only the first step. King Taksin's mission now was to reunify a country that had been torn apart. His reign, 1767 to 1782, was a long series of relentless wars to suppress the various warlords. He defeated rival powers in Phitsanulok, Nakhon Si Thammarat, and even extended his influence into Cambodia and Laos, re-establishing most of the territory of the old Ayutthayan Empire. King Taksin was a military genius, the savior of the nation. But the years of constant warfare and the immense pressure of rebuilding the country seemed to have taken a heavy toll on his mental health. In his later years, he showed signs of paranoia and cruelty, believing himself to be a living Buddha and punishing those who did not acknowledge it. The instability in the court led to a coup d'état in 1782. King Taksin was deposed and later executed. The leader of the coup, who was then acclaimed as king by the nobility, was one of his closest and most brilliant generals, Chao Phraya Chakri. This general ascended the throne with the reign name Ramathibodi, but he is more commonly known as King Rama I. He was the founder of the Chakri Dynasty, the dynasty that still reigns in Thailand to this day. Immediately after his coronation, in 1782, King Rama I decided to move the capital from Thonburi across the river to a more defensible location. He gave his new capital a very long ceremonial name, but it became known to the world as Bangkok. The founding of Bangkok and the Chakri dynasty marked the end of the chaotic period and the beginning of a new era of reconstruction and modernization for Siam. From the ashes of Ayutthaya, a new fire phoenix had truly been reborn. The 18th century was a century of destruction and rebirth for both Burma and Siam. The fall of Ayutthaya was one of the greatest tragedies in Southeast Asian history, but it was from that tragedy that the indomitable spirit and extraordinary resilience of the Thai nation were most brilliantly displayed. History has so many more stories to tell. To make sure you don't miss a single one, take action now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. Join us as we uncover the hidden corners of the past. See you next time.